Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. It's Monday. Monday. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Starla. Hi, Rhonda. Good to see you in the chat, Rhonda. Glad you're here. I'm glad you are here. I'm glad all of you are here. Ruth, I'm glad you're here as well. And Starla. Absolutely. So, it is Monday. Some Mondays are Mondays, aren't they? I'm having some kombucha. Hello, Ava. You guys ever try kombucha? Supposed to be good for your gut. That's what it's supposed to be. Hey, Peggy. All right, let us jump right in. Let's see. We're going to do paste papers tonight. And hi, Connie. You haven't tried it? You can make your own, but I decided I wasn't going to make my own when I could buy it. And they run it on special here pretty often, where you can buy 2 of these bottles, which are 416 fluid ounces, for like $2.50 a bottle. And usually one bottle lasts me 2 or 3 days. Well, I don't know. I've not heard that, Ruth. I've not heard that. Hey, Linda Garcia. I have not heard that. I know you can buy a culture that you can, like a starter, kind of like sourdough, to start your own. It's a fermented tea or something. I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. I like it. I'll tell you what it says. It's made with 100% pure love, so it could be what you said. You don't shake it, I will tell you that. You can swirl it like this, but if you shake it, there's enough carbonation in it that it will blow. Ingredients: GT's kombucha and cold pressed ginger juice. So whoever GT is, it's GT's kombucha and cold pressed ginger juice. 30-day ferment of kombucha culture, black tea, green tea, kiwi juice, and cane sugar, used for fermentation, not as an added sweetener. That's what the sugar's for. Could be, Starlight. Could be. Anyway, I like it. So, let's make sure I don't have crud on my hands. We're going to talk about paste papers tonight. But first, I'm going to show you a couple things that I worked on while I was away. And here is the, I showed these to you. Oh, that's cool. Good deal, Ruth. This is, I showed you these applique pieces that a friend of mine gave me. And so I have put this many, there's a bunch more of them left, but I've put this many on this doll. She had a necklace and she had words on and so forth. I took those off. And so I thought I would show you what I've done so far. This part down here is what I've gotten the most done on. And I'm not sure that I've done what I like down here. I like the stitching, I'm okay with. So I've just done a basic whip stitch, nothing fancy. I tried some different like buttonhole stitch and so forth to attach the appliques down. I didn't like it, so I took it out and went back and just did an applique, just a visible applique stitch. And so what I've done in here is, this was just plain pink. So was the light pink is a plain pink, and the dark pink is a plain pink. And so what I've done, I'm going to zoom in tighter so you can see. See if I can, yeah, there we go. So you can see that I've added just some little straight stitch viney things in the dark pink that really is too close in color to this, but you know, I may leave it. And then some lazy daisy or detached chain stitches and some colonial knots. Over here I did something similar, just in the one color. And then on this one I added some beads. That is a funky looking thing right there. This one, the contrast is by having the different color thread. The contrast is better. So I'm critiquing my own work just so I can tell you what I like and what I don't like. So I'm not sure that these that the stitches I have in there are going to the applique around the edges. Those stitches are going to stay. So all of these little stitches that are holding the appliques in place, those are all going to stay. The embroidery stitches, high degree of probability they're coming out and I'll start again, but I don't care because this is just something I'm using to fill the time. No problem, Rhonda. In and out is fine. Absolutely. And then a few weeks ago we worked on this, creating this here, and so we created the background. First of all, we did the background, so that's scraps. I was using up scraps in the background and did machine stitching on it. My usual technique. The green leaves are just different. The green leaves in the stem are also pieced but with smaller pieces, and then cut out and stitched on. These are just a variety of yellows, oranges, and golds to make the petals. And then I left the center blank. You know, there was a hole there because I was going to put a pin on there, which I still can, but I also added sequins and beads to make the center of the flower. So it gives it kind of an interesting, different textural element, shall we say. And then this part down here is just different kinds of straight stitch. This is all straight stitches, lazy daisy stitches, and colonial knots, which is a type of, it's similar to a French knot. And then there's more of it over here. This is just the basis, the laying out these viney kinds of things. And then I did another one coming up here, sort of like a cross between grass and weeds and whatever. Again, I'm not sure that I chose the colors that I like, so it's entirely possible that a lot of that, except for this shows up the way I like it, but the rest of this may come out and I may do something different. But it took time, and it, you know, I wasn't feeling great when I was working on it, and that's one of the reasons that it looks the way it does, because anytime you don't feel great, your work always will reflect that. And this, Jennifer Clouston, which is how you say her name, Jennifer Clouston's Foolproof Flower Embroidery and Freeform Embroidery, more this one than the flower embroidery, is kind of what this is loosely inspired by, you know, this kind of thing. Anyway, I am not great at the freeform stuff, and so I decided that I'd challenge myself and see if I could do it. This, in case you've never seen these before, these are called needle minders, and they have a pretty strong magnet, and you can put them on your cloth, and the magnet will stick to it, and then your needle, you can just have a place to park your needle if you don't have like if you're just parking your needle for a second, it's a good place to put it. It's not going to stay there forever. I mean, it's magnetized. It'll stay there as long as it doesn't get knocked off or have some, if you snag it on your sleeve, the magnet's not so strong that you could snag it on your sleeve or something and pull it off of that. But they're really neat, and they make all different kinds of them. It's essentially just an enamel pin, but instead of a pin back, it is a magnet on the back. And you can see how strong that is. This is fairly thick, and it has no problem holding it. See, it has no problem holding it. So I thought I would show that to you. I got a couple of those. I have one this is a sunflower. I have another one that's a hydrangea. And so I just got them from Amazon. I'm sure that they're on Etsy and all different kinds of places. So, if that kind of thing is interesting to you, if you do needlework, especially if you are in a position where you got to pick up and put down your stuff, or you have to quickly park the needle because you got to go do something, you got to take care of somebody, or you got to, take care of an animal. I'm taking care of a very elderly animal now. Muppet is very elderly and very much like a puppy. And so sometimes she requires instant attention. So anyway, I thought I'd show you those. Jennifer Clouston has several books. I think she has 4. One is Crazy Quilt, and her crazy quilting I think is extraordinary. So she has one on crazy quilting, one on, I think it's Crazy Quilt Projects or some kind of project book, and then these 2 that I showed you. Anyway, they're very good. What else? This was another book that I bought recently. I saw it talked about on Instagram, and there's a whole range of these books that this author does. And so I was intrigued by it, and I thought, I'm going to get it. I just want to see it. Because I'm always on the lookout for things that I can encourage other people with. And so I thought I would show you this one. And it's the Art Therapy Workbook for Grief and Loss, exploring the experience of grief through art therapy and writing exercises. And it's by Emily Bell, who is an art therapist, and she is an MALPCC. So I'm sure you guys, somebody in the chat will know what all that is. MA, I think, is master's. I don't know what this is. Probably licensed something or other. It So I thought I would show this to you real quickly. It was published in 2023. It was created in 2023. I bought it from. I found it on Amazon. I saw it on Instagram. I think I found it on Amazon. I may have ordered it directly from her. I've forgotten. Anyway, it's an interesting twist on art journaling. And so if you know people who are needing something like this, I think it's a really good resource. And it's not too thick, so it's not too heavy to carry with you, or for someone to stick in a bag if they're going to get stuck in a hospital, or if they're sitting with someone and they want something to do. She suggests very minimal supplies. And so I think it's really good. So I'm going to go through it just real briefly. And I think the illustrations are appropriate. That is kind of how your brain is sometimes. And then how to use it. Suggested supply list: markers, watercolor paints, colored pencils, pens, collage material from old magazines, pattern paper, colored paper, glue stick, oil pastel, and drawing pencils. Oil pastel, that's the only one I would say, I don't know, because oil pastel tends to have oil pastels tend to never dry. So that's the only one that I would go, yeah, maybe not so much. But there's no reason not to, because here's the thing. This isn't going to be a work of art. It's not what you're using this for, or not whoever is using it. That's not what it's for. It is for self-expression, busying your mind, busying your hands, so maybe your mind will get out of the game, get your hands busy so your mind takes a break, those kinds of things. So it doesn't really matter whether it smears and you get crud from this page transferring onto that one. So suggest prompts suggested. I think this is a beautiful page. Of course, I love clouds. I think this is a beautiful page, and I think this would be a great page to just color. Or the other thing is to take this and practice looking at this and drawing over here. Those are, those kinds of things are always good. It makes your mind really focus in on looking at the shape, looking at the line, looking at the width of the line. You can do all kinds of things, and then you could color it in. So this is an example of the prompt. Fill the following pages with circles, triangles, and squares, big and small. Try to fill the entire page, leaving no open space. Suggested materials: pens, pencils, markers, and then write the date down. So here's your pages. Now, when I read this the first time, as I looked at this, what I read was fill the following pages with circles, triangles, or squares. And so I was just imagining taking one shape, maybe triangles, that I don't normally find myself totally attracted to, much more attracted to circles, and trying to fill a whole page with triangles, trying to fill a whole page with squares. Squares, not so much. I'm not so much, that's not a shape that I'm totally in love with. Circles, different story. Circles, spirals, that kind of stuff. But then I went back and read it again. It's like circles, triangles, and squares. So you could do all of the above. You could take two, you could take one. You can do whatever you want. And then the next page was, what title would you give your drawing and why? Do the shapes or colors represent anything you do? Do they remind you of anything? And so there's some pages with lines, so you can do some writing if you wish. And more space. There's plenty of blank space through the workbook where a person could continue drawing or writing or making shapes or whatever. So anyway, I'm not going to go through all the prompts, but I just want to give you a look. There's a lot of blank pages, which is advantageous because you can do your own thing, and also pages with lots of lines. This is an excellent page. There's no prompt that went with this, but this is an excellent page to write a quote and make your letters fill the space. So make your letters varying heights and shapes and so forth in here. That's very the first person I ever saw do that myself was Tisha Moore. I don't know that that's peculiar to her, but it's really beautiful when you do that, to write a quote in the shaped spaces and then color, doodle, add patterning, whatever. Hello, Kate. Emotions of grief wheel and so forth. So anyway, there are a lot of things in here, even though there are a lot of empty spaces and blank pages where you can look at the prompts and see what sparks your interest. You don't have to go in order. Clearly you don't have to go in order. You can just look and do whatever you want to. Acknowledgement at the end, and so forth. Anyway, but there was a whole series of these, so there's not just this is not the only one in the series. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, you might look up the author, who is Emily Bell. Okay? Just as maybe it'll help. Okay, I have some other things that I can talk about, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start making some paste papers. Hi, Mickey. My very favorite thing to do when I'm doing paste papers is to start out with stencils and dilution sprays. The sprays that are water soluble, those are my favorites to use as a first layer. I did not get home in time to do that because it's messy. You gotta set up someplace where you can go outside. It's best outside. Sprays, you know how sprays do, they get everywhere. And use your stencil, and then you really do, unless you don't mind having the transfer of color on your stencils, because those sprays are highly water soluble, and I would use the ones that are water soluble. That's part of what makes the technique, in my opinion, so successful, is they dissolve in water. But you need to then either soak your stencils, and they don't take too long to clean up because they are water soluble sprays, or just be prepared for the fact that when you use them again, you're going to get transfer of color off the stencils. Okay? So what I have done is I have used art paste, and I've done this many times, but since I did not get the papers sprayed, we're going to start with fresh white paper. So you have seen me do this. If you've been hanging around me very long, you've seen me do this a bunch of times. And this is how I mix up how I do my paints. I use this old plastic ice cube tray. Actually, a friend of mine, an online friend, sent me this years ago because I was using a foam egg carton, the bottom section of a foam egg carton, and that works for quite a while, and then it works until it doesn't. And once it doesn't work, it makes a real mess. And I guess she was worried about me because she sent me this that came from the dollar store. And I have used this and used it and been very grateful that she sent it to me. So it is a great thing to use. An alternative for this is to use little cups, like little 2-ounce cups, but put them in a cake pan or a foil cake pan or something. You want to put them in the pan so that, because they're extremely apt to tip over. Okay, Kate says, okay, I have to ask. Sorry if this has already been addressed. My glue jug leaked, and when I went to purchase it, it's not made anymore. Oh, the art paste is not made anymore. Yeah. The Elmer's art paste is not made anymore. I'm still using it, but it is not made anymore. There was a recipe I looked up online because I was looking for alternatives. One is wallpaper paste, so you can use wallpaper paste. You may have to thin it a little bit. You can buy the pre-mixed wallpaper paste, and if you can find it in small quantities, you may pay more for it, because anytime you're buying small quantities of anything, you're going to pay more for it than you would if you bought a gallon of it or a quart or whatever. But wallpaper paste is probably as similar as the art paste is, but you may have to thin it down a little bit. Some of the art paste or some of the wallpaper paste has an insecticide in it. So if you are, and that's on purpose, because if you're putting wallpaper up on your walls, you don't want bugs, you don't want to attract bugs to come in and eat the wallpaper. They don't eat the wallpaper, they eat the paste behind it. So that's a good one. I have done that. I've used that. Another one is Stay Flow Starch, which is a liquid starch. That's another one that works well too. You can make your own art paste out of cornstarch and water. I found a recipe for that today, and that was a simple search on Google, and what it was how to make your own. What I searched for was how to make your own art paste, and it was cornstarch and water. The thing is, you have to cook it, and then you have to it's a process, and I don't know how long it lasts. That's the thing with some of those. I don't know how long it lasts. Another one is to buy methyl cellulose. You can get that at let's see, I think it's either Pro Chemical or Jacquard or Blix. Look up those and see what you can find. That I found was a little pricey by comparison to the art paste. The Elmer's art paste, I don't know why they discontinued it, but they did. Anything that is made for paper mache should work for this, but you're just gonna have to try it. And I think some people have even used glue, like maybe Elmer's glue and some of those things. So just, you're gonna have to kind of experiment with it. I bought a lot of Elmer's art paste, so I have a lifetime supply probably. Hope that helps. And if anybody else in the chat has a solution or a suggestion, chime in. Okay? All right. So this is my setup, and what I've used for this group of this session of creating art papers is I've used tube acrylics, except for this one, which is Emperor's Gold, which is a deco art dazzling metallic Emperor's Gold. So that's what this is. This is a tube acrylic of a metallic black. That's a fluorescent pink, and these are different brands. The brand doesn't matter. This is a primary yellow, I think it was. This was a not fluorescent, but a lime green. This is my favorite color of aqua. And then this is some kind of purple. Now, of this color right here, which is this one, Master's Touch Purple. This is very opaque, and I did not realize how opaque this was. And the rest of these were a little more on the translucent. They're not as opaque. And so I ended up having to add more art paste because I used the same quantity of this, which is by guess and by golly. I scored it in, use a popsicle stick, stir it up, test it out on a paper. So this was my test sheet. This is the lime green, that's the aqua, this is the yellow and lime, that's that hot pink, and here is this purple, which is very opaque by comparison, say, to this one. So add more art paste or Stay Flow starch or wallpaper paste or whatever you're using if you have something that's real opaque. All right, so there's that. And this was my tester sheet for when I was playing with the purple. After I added more of the art paste to it, you can see hopefully the difference from the one that I'm shaking, that one, versus the one underneath it. You can see that as I scraped away, you see more of what's underneath. And that's part of my process. I like the the scraping away, and I like to see what's underneath. This one is the metallic black. I don't know if you can see that, but this I'm going to use sparingly because it is also tending towards opaque. The gold, on the other hand, you can see how it scrapes back to almost the paper color, the naked paper, and it goes over the other colors really well. So you just play with it and see, you know. This is not a science, believe me. I wouldn't be surprised if you could do that. Starla said she wonders if you could thicken Elmer's glue with a little cornstarch and get the right consistency. I wouldn't be surprised that you could. But because I still am working with the art paste that I have, the things, and quite frankly, I gotta tell you, I would be hard pressed, you know, unless I just have a day where I just don't have anything to do and I'm going to sit around and test out stuff, which, you know, sometimes I do for classes, sometimes I do exactly that. But right now life is just a little too crazy for me to do that, and so I would be hard pressed to do that. I'm much more likely to just pick up, you know, find Stay Flow liquid starch, you know, the kind in the blue jug, that kind. And sometimes it's easy to find, sometimes it's not, but I'm much more inclined to pick up something like that or go get some wallpaper paste and use that, something that's pre-mixed. And it used to, with wallpaper paste, I don't know if you can still do this or not, but wallpaper paste used to be that you bought the powdered stuff and then you mixed it into water. If you can still buy it that way, that is a great solution, because then you can mix it to the consistency you want and mix the quantity you want. So there's that. Because this, once the paint is in it and it's mixed up, it's not going to last forever by any means. So you gotta use up the paint within a day or two at the most. The paste, I found, lasts for the art paste lasts. I mean, this jug I'm working in is 10 years old, so it's still hanging in there. Okay, so let's start. So I just have a bunch of white copy paper, 20-pound copy paper. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is to get something slopped on here real quick, otherwise the camera's going to go a little crazy. Now, my colors get contaminated very quickly, and I really don't worry about that a whole lot. And so I just pick up colors, and you can do one color, but I find that the more colors I have, you know, like maybe 3 on a sheet, the more I like that. So now I have fans going in here, and so that tends to be a little problematic, because you want to get the color on, get the paste paint. This is the mixed up paint with the art paste or starch or glue or whatever it is that you're using. That's what I call the paste paint. And once it's on there, then you got to work fairly quickly and texture. Go ahead and texture the paint. I like having the different choices of colors, and I tend to wipe off the tool. This is a Catalyst W-03. I like this tool. I don't clean it very well. I like that one. I also like this one. This is an old Martha Stewart. I think it was a striping tool of some kind. The little spaces are consistent on the end, smaller on this end, consistent here, and graduated here. So you get 4 choices. So I like that one also. And then these are style sticks. You can get them wedge shaped or round, and I like those also. All right, so now once the paper gets soaked with the paste paint solution, it becomes pretty flimsy, and so you're going to have to put it someplace and let it dry. Alright, so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to add it to my stack of papers, just because it's going to let that dry like that. And hopefully as this, we'll be able to come back and put some more colors on top of it. So I'm going to just leave this out where hopefully the fan will dry it. Now it helps if you do this either on a non-stick sheet like this. This is the Tim Holtz mat that has seen better days. It's good to do it on something like this, or to use a piece of like old shower curtain or plastic, like drop cloth plastic, and work on top of that. If you do it on top of a surface of your desk, or like this is a rotary cutting mat under this, if I try to work directly on that, it's gonna be a mess. Okay, just a mess. All right, so let's go to another couple of colors. So I give myself, usually it sometimes takes a little bit to get your mojo going as to how much, what do you want to use here? How much paint do you need? And that kind of stuff. So, oh yeah, this is much better, this purple. Once I thinned it out a little bit more, so it's a lot more translucent, which that's what I like right there. Okay, so let's do this. Now you can't wait too long, because the paste paint will set up pretty fast. And then you can take your style sticks and you can draw into it. You can add lines, and in some of the colors it'll show, for example, the purple, it's going to show in that. And if you don't like what you did, okay, you just take your brush and you just brush it out. Just brush it out, so you add a little bit more of the paste concoction, and you can do the same thing on this one and go, nope, I didn't like what I did, and so you can just add some more and then go back. And the paste thickens, it thins the paint, but it thickens the paint. So it makes it more translucent, more that quality of being able to see through it, but it holds it and doesn't allow the paint to slump back together. Okay. And then again, the paper gets pretty weak when it's this wet, so you need to pick it up and put it someplace. So give me just a second. I needed to crawl under my table for a minute and get a piece. What I have is an old drop cloth that I'm going to just put on the floor and stick the papers on, and hopefully they won't blow away. Alright, so we'll put this one on the floor. So hopefully some of these will firm up enough we can go to another coat. In a minute. Now, I like to keep the mat just kind of mopped off. I don't know. I do tend to like to work on a little bit cleaner surface when I'm doing this for whatever reason. Yeah, straight out of the bottle. Yeah, the fabric starch, as Ruth said, is a great solution. Okay, so we're just going to play. And I work as quickly as I can when I'm doing this. It gets my brain out of the loop. You can blend the colors together or not. You can be sloppy or you can be neat. And people who are really into doing paste papers, the fine art of paste papers, believe me, they do not do it this way. They are doing beautiful end papers for books and things like that. That is not what I'm after. And so there you go. And you see how the paper wrinkled up here? That's just the hazard of the paper getting super wet and compromised. Okay, let's go back the other way. Try. You can do this with cardstock also. I have found that I kind of like using paper as opposed to cardstock, but you know, you can do whatever floats your boat. It is your creative thing. One of the things that's nice, especially with this tool, is if you don't come back across it with this tool, if you do just lines, then if you cut this apart or use it in your journal and that sort of thing, using those lines, they make great journaling lines, guides for adding words and journaling. Okay, let's clean up some of this. All right, any questions? Okay. One of the good things too is it comes off your hands pretty easily. That I like. That's fine, Carla or Starlet. Enjoy working in your studio. You bet. Okay, that's the black one. Oh, I put the purple one in I need to get another brush. Now, foam brushes are inexpensive, but you know, I have to say that I still wash them out and reuse them until they stop. It's just I can't personally, in good conscience, just throw those things away. That is just me. Some people don't have any problem doing that. Some people have problems using paper towels. I don't have a problem with that. So we all have our things, you know. Okay, this is the Emperor's Gold. What I did was I grabbed my gold brush and stuck it in the purple. So that ran me a brush short. This is the metallic black. So we're going to stick some black on here in a couple spots. I personally like having the multicolored pages because I find that I can rip them apart and get some real interesting looks. Okay. And this is your first layer. You can come over these with multiple layers as many times as you want. So, first layer. Hello, Dorothy. Now, if you do the spray layer on the bottom using a highly water-soluble spray like the Dilutions spray inks, the cool part about that is that that first layer of the paste paint that you put over the dried sprayed ink, and I spray it through stencils because I like the patterning coming up through the stencils. The first layer of this paste paint that you put on there, it's going to move that ink around. It's also going to seal in your sprays. So it's a twofer. I have no problem contaminating stuff. I don't care if it gets contaminated. You know, I try to keep the colors as pure as possible when I'm mixing them up. For whatever reason, I don't know, because as soon as I start slopping paint on here, they become contaminated, so I don't know why. But anyway, I guess so you'll think I know how to mix paint. Alright, so let's use, I really like the squiggle or zigzag kinds of patterns. And when you have a section like this where not much of anything happened, that's because the paint was dry there. So you can always just put some more paint. Put some more stuff on it. That might be overkill right there. So let's see if we can get a happy medium there where we get some but not too much. And then maybe we'll so that was kind of a happy accident. And this is a lot of just big yellow, so I'm going to just take this and mess it up a little bit. Just because. Okay? Alright, so we're going to put that one away. Not away, but on the floor to dry. As the paints or the papers begin to dry, they will start buckling, and that doesn't mean you can't come over it with another layer of the paint. You can do that. I'm gonna do maybe, I don't know, I have 4 more sheets of paper out here, and you can also do this on top of colored paper. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Of course, the color is the color of the paper is going to affect how the paint appears. And that's okay. You know, that's good too. It's all good. But don't be afraid to just experiment and try things. You'll find some colors you really like for example, I'm not crazy about this metallic black. First time I've tried it. I like pretty much all metallic colors, and so I bought a tube of that because I thought, oh, somebody said, oh, you'll love it, you know. So I got it and tried it. It's not my favorite, but at the same time, you don't know if it's going to be your favorite until you try it. Yeah? Okay, how about... And there are times when I do a layer of the paste paint and I go, oh man, that was the ugliest thing I think I have ever done. And then I'll set it on the floor to dry. And especially if I do a whole bunch of papers in one sitting, which, you know, if I'm going to get out the mess, I'm probably going to do a whole bunch of papers in one sitting, and I'll come back to it sometimes as they dry, because they do change, and I'll come back to it and go, what was it I didn't like about that, you know, because they change. All right, let's do 3 more. Oh, you're welcome, Kate. You are welcome. I love doing paste papers. I love having my own papers. I like to do collage stuff, and a lot of times I will use these as the background mats for, you know, I'll do card fronts. This was the woven card front that we did Friday, I think. But I'll do this layer back here instead of black. I'll use the paste paper, but I'll make this section smaller so you can actually see some of the paste paper layer in the background. So you can do that. I use them for all different kinds of things. If you have any questions, be sure you put them in all caps. Okay. I'm just looking at what colors I have over here. You can mix the colors up. You can keep them very pristine. You get some interesting blends when you mix them up. And then you draw into the paint with your tools. Sometimes you have to give yourself a little bit of room because you need to give your arm plenty of room, especially for a bigger pattern like those big swirly things. You got to give your arm room to move around. Now, if you like to have single colors in a layer, that's fine. So we'll do that. We'll see if I can get this paint on here fast enough. I have done these paste papers on 11 by 17 paper, but boy, you got to move quick because the paint starts setting up fast enough, especially if you've got, like I do, I have fans running. The paste paint starts setting up, and before you can get your patterning in it. Okay, let's just do this. Okay, so we just have a big old spiral. Let's see what will happen if we do this thing where let's see if we can do this over here and do some wedges. Just for something different. So we'll be done. Call that one done for this one. The second coat is just like magic. It really is. I find it challenging to constantly do not the same thing, you know? So, okay, this is my last piece of paper I have here, so hopefully some of these will be dry. If not, we will shoot some heat on them, but hopefully they'll be dry. When I mix up the paint, I always think I'm not going to over mix, and I almost always do. And then I promise myself I will come back tomorrow and I will use these up, and I almost never do. So yeah, okay, let's try this one with this finer tool. Okay. And let me see what's dry here. I think this one is dry enough. You see how the edges start curling and stuff? The corners start curling. I watched a fine art school one time. They had a video course or something, and they were doing the paste papers, but man, they were cooking the paste and they were doing all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, why would you do that when all you got to do is just put some art paste on it, you know? Okay, so we're going to come over it with a second layer. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just use this turquoise. I'm going to end up using the turquoise all up just about on this one. It's getting thick anyway, so that's good. We're going to use it up. Okay, so try to keep it wet. Same principle. You can go over it with multiple colors. All right. So I'm looking at what's underneath, and so this time I'm going to go with a bigger pattern. Let's see if I can avoid the wrinkles. Yeah. Sometimes it's not as successful. This one I would say is not terribly successful. Let's see if we can get anything else to move with this wedge. Okay. No. Okay. You see, once it's dry, it's not moving. So I think what I'm going to do down here, since it just decided it was not going to move, I'm going to put a layer of this hot pink down on it. I was going to use only one color, but we're going to just put some hot pink on it so we can see if we can get it to cooperate. There we go. Okay. The trick is don't give up on it. Just don't give up. Let's here. Even though a lot of this turquoise is wet, I'm going to put some of this gold over it. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to go this way. That's what I'm talking about. See, when you get it working, it is, I'm telling you, people, it's magic. It's magic when they work. Okay, let's see if we can, I don't know if I want to leave that gold line there. Actually, I may leave that gold line. I kind of like that thick gold line. But let's do, I'm not going to leave it. I'm going to mess it up. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm happier with it. And so now I actually added multiple colors on that layer, and I think it's going to turn out and be very nice. So put this back down to dry. You can do as many layers of the paint as you want. Usually my attention span is 2. You could do 3. I don't know that I would go more than 3 unless you had a pretty good contrast of color in your subsequent layer. big difference between gel print and paste papers. The process is backwards. So this, you're building layers on top, and so your final layer is the last thing you do. On the gel print, if you're making a layered monoprint, whatever you put down on the plate first is what is going to be the most visible. So if you do multiple layers with stencils and that kind of stuff, and then put on a thin coat and pull the print all in one, it's whatever you put on the bottom, the first layer you put on that plate is going to be the one that you're going to see the most because you're pulling it up. Where this, you're building layer by layer by layer on top of it. That's the biggest difference. They're both unpredictable. That is a fact. They are both unpredictable. And you have to be okay with the unpredictability of it, the uniqueness, the serendipity quality. You got to be okay with that, or this is not your thing. This is less expensive if you're using like Stay Flow starch or art paste or wallpaper paste. It's less expensive to get into than with gel printing, I think, but you know, it's just it sometimes has a similar look, but the process itself, the creation process, is different. Okay, let's contrast of line thickness. You don't have to do the same design all the way through. You can change it up. This is what I'm talking about journaling lines, the space between the lines that you do with the thicker lines. That's a great, like you could take this section out, put it on a journal page, and that's a great place for journaling. You could do the same thing with this. Just take out a section of that, and then draw your words, write your words in the spaces following the zigzags. So it just, you know, I like doing both. I would never do paste paper on fabric. Where I do use the jelly plate on fabric. I haven't done that for quite a while. There's a learning curve on both, where you have to kind of you got to kind of wrap your head around it, you know, for both of them. You got to give yourself some, you got to allow yourself some crappy pulls or some crappy prints, and then you start to catch the rhythm, and you can make some really good stuff happen. But it does take a minute. Yeah, it does take a minute to wrap your head and your fingers and your everything, get it all working for both processes. And I think there's more success sometimes with the paste paper, immediate success, than with the gel plate sometimes, or the jelly plate. I think sometimes there's more immediate success doing this, because the jelly plate, you know, if you're not using the right paint, the right consistency of paint, the right coat of paint, and what else? I don't know. You just kind of have to be patient with the learning curve. And the more, like Elizabeth St. Hilaire, I don't know if you watch her on Joggles, but she has worked with the jelly plate enough that I'm telling you she has some incredible results with what she does with the jelly plate. But that comes from a tremendous amount of practice. And how clean do you keep the plate, and how often do you condition it, and all that kind of stuff. So now you see what the purple area did. I still have some peeking through of the purple, but I turned it brown because I went over it with yellow, which is the opposite on the color wheel. So maybe that's what you want, maybe not. You can come back over the top of it when this is dry and put purple right back on the top of it. Okay. All right, this is not super dry, but we're going to go for it anyway. And you don't have to cover the entire sheet. If you like part of what you got going on here, just put your second layer on part. And then remember that you don't have to love the entire piece of paper. You can like only part of it. Or you can go, you know, I like what's happening there, so I'm going to now change my mind, and I'm just going to come back and add the purple here. And maybe on this side, maybe we'll come over it, see what happens with this green. Now this green and this purple are not friendly with each other. They're going to go brown because this is a yellow green, yellow, purple, opposites on the color wheel. So if you do not want that to turn brown, then don't put too much of it over. The purple. Don't put too much yellow over the purple. Now I love this color combination right here with the aqua, either the aqua on the bottom and the yellow green on top, or vice versa. I love that color combination right there. That's going to probably be my favorite little section of this whole printing thing. All right, we got a couple more pieces of paper here that we're going to put a second layer on. Most of these have cooperated and have dried for us. There's a few little thick spots here where I'm just going to mop them up, but for the most part they're pretty dry. Okay, let's do, because I'm just working with the same colors on the whole thing. You know, I haven't added any additional colors for the second layer. And that's fun too. Use colors that are totally different for your second layer or subsequent layers of paint. You can use foam stamps. I would not use your fine, good art stamps, art rubber stamps, but you can use foam stamps as long as you wash them off pretty quick. They don't all work the same. You'll find the ones that you like. You can use mark making tools like spools and the centers of tape dispensers. All right, let's see what we can do. Contrast in color And contrast in marks is what I like. Trying to get down here to this end before it dries. There we go. It's such a fine it's a very fine line between waiting a little bit for the paint to firm up enough that you really get the lines in it that you want, and waiting too long and it doesn't move at all. So yeah, you just got to be okay. You know, it's the Tim Holtz thing. You get what you get. You don't throw a fit. Yeah, it's one of those. All right, this one is a little bit wet. Let's see what we can get out of this. Red on the bottom and purple on the top would be a great combo. Absolutely. Okay, let's go with I'm just going to go back to this pink. I do love a good fluorescent pink. Alright, so we have purple and we have hot pink on this one. And let's do this is one that is going to need another layer, or the other option is just wipe it out and do it again. Okay, let's try again, see if we get something I like better. Might not like it any better the second time. And you have to remember too, when you're doing these, don't pass judgment on them to start with. Let them dry. Once they dry, you're going to end up, they're going to have a different look than they do when they're wet. I don't know how that works, but it does. All right, we're winding down here. I do find that if you kind of clean the surface as you go, it does kind of help control some of the chaotic paint mess. All right, let's go with gold. Once the wood part of your stick pokes through the sponge, you might as well throw your sponge brush away, because at that point then the stick starts making more problems than you really want to deal with. So, but until that happens, I do continue to wash them out. The paste paint washes out pretty quickly, pretty easily. I do dispose of the vast majority of it outside, and then I'll soak the brushes and I'll dump the water outside and that kind of stuff. Okay, let's do this one. I just think the more complex the design that you can do, the more fun they are to use, you know? Because you look at it and you go, I mean, somebody will look at this and go, how did you do that? And you go, well, not really sure. Sometimes that is the answer. I'm not really sure how that happened. When I find spots in the paint where I missed texturing it, then I'll do just like this. I'll come back and I'll draw something into the paint. And sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But as you build up the layers, what's down first, or the previous layers, begin to kind of sink, like they're kind of going down below the surface. Alright, I'll move this one. I like that one. I like a good metallic gold print. Let's see if we can, this has 2 layers on it. Let's give this another layer of paint and see what happens. Let's go back to the purple, because this was the one that I wiped out with putting yellow over it, and so it turned the purple to a brown once they blended together. Now I'm putting purple over the yellow and over the yellow green, so we're still going to get some brown, but the purple is going to be back on the top layer. But see what I mean about that opacity of this purple? Because I can't really see what's under there. And unfortunately, I'm dingy enough that I'm not. No, there we go. It's okay. I was going to say I can't remember what I drew under it. There we go. All right. There you go. Okay, so now do you see what I'm talking about, where you have the multiple layers, things are peeking through, there's textures from below, there's color from below. This section right here is not terribly successful, but a lot of the rest of this is. But is that, I mean, I love that. I think that's going to be a good print to use. I think that's going to be a great print piece of paper to use. And let's do one more. Let's do this one. Put another layer on it. This would be the third layer for this one. The fan blowing on these papers has really helped dry them. I appreciate you, fan. Okay, so I'm not real sure what we did on this one. Was this? That was pink. We did the hot pink on it. All right. I have to have a drink so I can cogitate a minute. So I'm going to come over this with, I'm almost out of the aqua. And let's just take this little section. I don't like that as much. So just brush it out. And let's just go. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so we have that, and then I'm gonna take this wedge tool and let's see what happens. Not a whole lot, but that's okay. Don't you find it interesting how we try to reassure ourselves and say, yeah, but it's okay. Okay, this part down here is ugly, but that's all right. We don't care. There are other sections on that paper that are good. I mean, of this corner that are good. Let's go over here to this, over here on this ugly part. Again, using the aqua that's almost gone. Okay, and so that gives us several different, as a whole the paper is ugly, but several sections. This by itself has real possibilities. This has real possibilities. In fact, we could put another layer on this. Let's put some gold on this. I am never going to use a piece of this paper. Well, I was just going to tell you a lie. I was going to say I never use them just plain by themselves, but that's not entirely true because I have made books where the paste paper was the pages. So I did use the paste paper totally as the pages. Funny how sometimes one piece of paper you go, yeah, I was really liking it, and then I didn't like it so much, and then you do one more layer of paint, you go, I don't know what I didn't like about it because I really like it now, you know. Okay, this is going to make a big mess, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then one of the things you can do that makes it even more interesting, and we'll see, this may work, it may not. Yeah, it worked. Okay, good. Is by doing the fine lines with this one and then coming back with the thicker lines over the top, you look at that and you go, how did that happen? You know? So now I like it. How many layers can you do? You can do as many layers as you want to, honestly. Until you're tired of doing layers of paint, you just keep going. When you like it, stop. Or the other thing is when you run out of time and you go, nope, or you're tired, you're fatigued, and you decide you're done, then that's it. And then you go, that's all the layers of paint those papers are going to get. I have actually had some that I've done the spray layer with the water-soluble sprays like the Dilutions inks, or you could use the Distress spray stains. I just happen to like the color palette for this kind of thing of the Diane Reedley's Dilution sprays. I've had some of those that I did the spray layer, and then I did one layer of paint, of the art paste paint, and I was going to come back and do more. Promised myself I would be coming back to do additional layers and never did. And so I used them the way they were, and they were just fine. Yep. All right, any questions from anybody? All right, I don't see anything. So I'm going to take off for tonight. Thanks for joining me. Oh, there were a couple things I was going to, maybe I'll just save those. I had a couple articles I was going to share with you. Maybe I'll just save those till Friday. That's probably what we'll do. One was particularly interesting. I'm going through a lot of my old magazines and pulling out articles that I know are interesting, just to use for inspiration. Some of them are old stamper, like Somerset Studio magazines, art journaling, the sewing magazine that they had, and just going through and just pulling out things. Sometimes it's color palettes, sometimes it's a technique, sometimes it's an artist profile. And there was one about Michelle Ward that was particularly good, and I thought I'll share that with you guys. So I will save that for Friday. So I will be back on Friday. I think I've about got my hands kind of cleaned up. I'll be back on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I will see you then. As always, do something nice for somebody else. And remember to get creative today, because even if you do it in little tiny segments, the smaller the segment, the more that you can just pick up something and do. It is not hard to do that. In fact, it's easy. Okay? So do that. Get creative every day as much as you possibly can. And I will see you back here on Friday. Okay? Until then, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks for being here. Thanks, mods. I appreciate you all so much. See you guys soon. Bye for now.